Welcome back everyone to part 2 of why do sperm whales make loud sounds. Before we move on to learning about sperm whale sounds, let's review some of the important observations we have made while using the Soundwave app. No matter what the frequency of a sound wave, it always has the highest energy at the sound source. As the sound spreads out from the sound source, the total sound pressure, which is the intensity, will be distributed over a larger and larger surface area. The sound will be perceived as less and less loud the farther away the sound receiver is from the sound source. So scientists develop explanations based on evidence. We now have some important initial evidence to understand what we mean with loud sounds, but we need more evidence to answer why sperm whales make these intense high amplitude sounds. So what do we know about sperm whales? Well, first of all, we know that they're social mammals. And like elephants, they live in herds to have a similar social structure. Cows produce milk to feed their calves. Calves stay with their mother for many years or all their lives. Females will stay there in the herd for their whole life, while males stay only until they are adults. A herd is usually composed of many females and calves. The social structure is made up of grandmothers, mothers, aunts, sisters, and calves. Males will occasionally join the herd for short periods of time. The herds will spread out as they move, but will stay in contact with each other. So sperm whales need to communicate with each other. They live in groups that can be spread out over many kilometers of ocean. So to keep groups together, they need to communicate to find each other. And this is only possible using sound, since they can't see each other. Their social sounds are special because they are composed of a sequence of clicks, then silence, then more clicks, known as a coda. It's like a code. Unlike elephants, sperm whales are also carnivores. That means that they need to find and catch their prey. And they use echolocation clicks to find squid. Here's an example of the kind of clicks that they are producing. And you can see here, the scale is time along the bottom here, and on the side you see frequencies. And you see the clicks here, the clicks contain a lot of frequencies, all from very few hertz all the way up to 24,000. But these clicks happens at one at a time. So if you look at how this goes, it goes click, 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 like that. So they send out them one at a time. So like Mr. Rocha from the New Bedford Whaling Museum mentioned when he spoke to you, the sperm whale head is a really big part of the whole body, and it's all dedicated, most of it is dedicated to produce and focus sound into a beam into the water in front of the whale. And the way this works is that if you look at the anatomy, this big yellow area here is called the spermaceti organ, and that it contains this oily liquid that is very good at leading sound. And in front of that is this air sac that sits here, and in the back is also an air sac. And these two air sacs are connected with one of the two nostrils of the whale that sits underneath the spermaceti organ. And these nostrils end in these phonic lips or sonic lips. Then they are also called monkey lips. The whale will push air through these two sonic lips, and they will generate the click because they can vibrate in this air sac that is sitting in. And that causes the spermaceti organ to start to vibrate. So it sends these sounds through the spermaceti organ. And when the sound comes to this back air sac, it functions as a mirror for sound. So that the sound bounces back and forth in here, but every time it comes back, some of it gets led down below through the junk and out into the water. When look at a film clip that comes from Windfall Films that shows how this works.
They're about to take this whale away. But I think if we just take a peek, we can see my favorite organ. If you follow this passageway into here, see where my hand is going? Right here on this side of my hand is a pair of lips. They look kind of like the muzzle of a monkey, and therefore the first person who described it called it the museau de singe, which means the monkey's muzzle, or sometimes loosely translated as monkey lips. And if we just part this in here and look inside, you can see that cleft of between the two lips right there. I'm going to try and put the knife blade in so you can see that. But that's the cleft right there. Right there. See that lip that's moving? That is the monkey's lips. And air is actually coming out between those two lips and into this pocket that my hands are in. This pocket that's right here is simply a space to allow those lips to vibrate. And when they vibrate, these lips are attached to all that spermaceti oil that we saw. So as air is popping out of those lips, it's vibrating the spermaceti oil. Now, what's really interesting is the air popping out of these lips exits up in here, or it can be sucked back in through the other nasal passageway and go back down to the lungs again and be recycled. But the air that's coming through those lips is coming from deep in those lips from another separate pathway deeper in the head that's coming up to this part of the nose, to one nostril.
Here is the key to the sperm whale's titanic song. Hidden deep inside its head is a second nasal passage that shares the single nostril. When air runs through the monkey lips, they slap together. This is what makes the sound of the whale's click. It's an extraordinary example of evolution. One part of its nose breathes, the other sings.
So we've got a really big hole for breathing because they got to evacuate all the air like a sneeze, and a really tiny hole for making sounds, kind of like when you squeeze the balloon and you let little tiny squeaks out from the balloon. That's what they're doing right here. This is the part where you squeeze the balloon, and when it comes out as a click, as these two lips go smack, 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 smack. That's the click that's needed for echolocation. And that click has to then travel from this sound generator through this sound modifier to a reflector in the back, which is also made out of air, then through a series of condensing lenses, which is on the other side of his head, and finally out of the skull here, right here, out of the front of the head. So this is where the sound comes out. This is where the sound is made. So it's got to go all the way to the front, go all the way to the back, and come all the way to the front again before it actually comes out. It's an amazing path. Very cool. Okay. Now they can take the whale away.
So here you can see another image of those phonic lips or the monkey muzzle, where those lips are, that makes the clicks. To recap a little bit, the head anatomy of the sperm whale, you can see here again from the side view that we have these two air sacs, one in the back near by the skull and one at the front here. And both of those function as sound mirrors. And then underneath this spermaceti organ, underneath there goes this airway, this nostril. You can see here, it's all the way underneath. So the sound in this, once the sound gets into the spermaceti organ, it bounces between these two air mirrors and it's trapped by this airspace below here. And then it goes out through these condensing lenses, as she mentioned in the video, to be able to get out of the whale head here and come out as a focused beam that goes in front of the whale. So what happens with the click once it's left the whale's head? Well, as the click is coming to the front of the whale head, it vibrates the tissue of the front of the whale, and that in turn will vibrate the molecules in the water, who then will bounce into other water molecules, so that this pressure wave will be sent out in front of the whale like this beam, and this goes on forward depending on what they're using it for. So if they're communicating with another whale, then you have the sender that makes the click, or the coda in this case, and that is sent out and is received by a receiver, and they can be many kilometers from each other. The sound needs to be loud to travel that far. Codas are different. There are different types of codas, these click patterns. Here's the echolocation clicks, how they look. They're evenly spaced. And here you have a coda. There's 3 clicks together and then 1 click after a little space of time. So it'll be click, 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 click. But here we have 3 clicks followed by 2 clicks. So click, 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 like that. So scientists can use these codas to identify individuals or social or specific social groups, since they kind of are like codes, like Morse code. Now, to look at the other types of clicks, we need to look at the echolocation click that the sperm whales use to find food. And here they send out the clicks in the same way, and the sound is then spreading in a beam that gets wider and wider the farther away from the whale it gets, so it covers more and more area. And eventually it'll bounce off a target like a squid and then come back. And scientists have found that sperm whales can find squid less than a foot long over a mile away with these echolocation clicks. So when the click reaches the squid, it bounces off and then it comes back as an echo. And this echo also spreads out and gets wider and wider as it gets closer to the whale. So it has to travel a long distance to get back to the sperm whale. They also have to be very loud because of that. So echolocation, the sound needs to be loud enough to travel from the sender to the target, bounce off and come back as an echo, so the same individual that was the sender can receive the sound and hear it. So this click that they're using to find food is called the usual click. It's the most common echolocation click pattern that they're using. They're sending out 1 click at a time, regularly spaced, and they can do that for many minutes. They can send out click after click after click. Once they get closer to the target, they start using the other type of click they use for capturing their prey, and that's called a creak. And the creak is a rapid burst of echolocation clicks that are very close together that they use for the final part when they're getting close and are trying to actually capture the prey. And we're going to see a video thanks to the Museum of New Zealand, Te Papa Tongareva. Here you can see the usual clicks. And notice here how the whales are hearing the sounds through their lower jaws. Didn't mention that earlier. You can hear the creaks as the animal's coming closer to the prey. So now we're going to, you are going to predict which ones of these sounds we've talked about are the loudest based on how the animals are using it. So we've looked at the coda, this is social communication click, and we've looked at the usual click they use for searching prey, and we've looked at the creak that they use at the end when they're homing in on the prey. So let's look at these three sounds one more time in order. So let's start by looking at the coda first. And this coda is the 1 + 1 + 3 coda. You can see it here, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and so on. So this is lots of frequencies, short time periods. So now we're going to look at the usual click, which is used for the echolocation. Evenly spaced out. This is from Wikimedia. And then the third sound we're looking at is the creak. So those are the three types of clicks. So now you're going to make a prediction about which one of these three sounds you think may have the highest amplitude, may be the loudest. And you're going to rank them from 1, the loudest, to 3, the least loud. The louder the sound, the farther it will travel. So this is also a way to predict which sound would travel the farthest. Thanks for listening. Look forward to hearing your predictions and your answers to our math questions about sperm whale sounds. The next lesson, we will learn how scientists use spectrograms to study whale sounds. Thank you for today. Have a good time.